Hey guys, Coach Chris here, back with another video. Played in a tournament on Saturday, and this is round one from that tournament. I was rated 17-16 USCF, opponent was 12-69. Time control was game in 25 with a 5-second delay. So time definitely became a factor in rounds 2, 3, and 4 of the tournament. Not so much in this one, and we'll see why here in a second. So opponent opened with e4. I played the French. We could still get an exchange French, an advanced French, but instead my opponent played d3. Very passive, conservative move. My opponent was probably happy to get the queens off the board, but I was too. Black's just very comfortable here. Developed with bishop c5 hitting the f2 pawn, so king went back. Knight f6 hitting the e4 pawn and developing. Bishop d3. And here I castled. There's an argument to be made that you should keep the king in the middle, since the queens are off and we might be heading to an endgame. I wanted to get castled, and I was hoping to get the rooks involved quickly, but didn't really happen. Bishop f4 hitting the c pawn, I just moved it forward, and after knight c3 b5 I would like to get the bishop on the long diagonal if possible, or at least that was the idea. But after e5, knight to the middle, I'm hitting his bishop and his knight. I guess his bishop could have gone back, but instead he captured, and I recaptured with the e pawn. So recapturing with the c pawn was okay according to the engine, even though it drops b5, which I found interesting. Taking with the e pawn seemed more natural to me, so that now the light squared bishop can get out more naturally. King e2, hoping to centralize the rooks and tuck the king back in. But bishop g4 is the move I wanted to play anyway. Here it pins the knight. Opponent played c3, and I thought the idea was if the white knight can never move, then it could come to d4 on a protected square. But after knight d7, I guess the point all along was b4. I played bishop b6. I felt like that was the correct diagonal, or at least the most aggressive diagonal, leading to the king and the f2 pawn. h3, and here I took a little time and I decided to capture. Dropping the bishop back was fine, and giving up the bishop pair is not something I would usually be thrilled about, but here I think just concretely it works very well. So after takes, if white were to take with the pawn, then just rook to the e file and we're picking up e5. So white captured with the king, and I debated here, should I bring the rook over to the e file? First I decided that just f6 is good to go right now, so why wait? Let's try to open up the f file towards the king. Opponent played e6, which I thought was just wrong at the time. The engine says it's the best move. I think the idea is to keep the position closed so the king is safer. I played knight e5 check, and here my opponent took, which was not in the spirit of e6. Now if the king would have gone to e2, I'm certain I would have taken here, taking away the bishop pair and taking this pawn. And I felt like the e6 pawn is weak, my pawns are strong. I felt like I was just completely crushing here. The engine says nothing's happening, that is just very, very equal, which shocks me. I'm not quite sure how that could be, frankly, because I feel like this pawn is just too exposed, but in any event, engine says this is just nothing. It shows you how much I understand about positional chess. So instead of dropping the king back, where I probably would have made a mistake there, I was able to recapture with check, and now the king stepped up. And as you can see from the arrows, I've got a lot going on in this position. The rook's on the open f file. The e pawn can step forward and block out the bishop. My bishop is hitting f2, so this is just a very, very pleasant, easy attacking position. I started with bishop f2, cutting off the king from retreat squares, and after rook f1, rook f4, bringing the king even further. I brought over the last rook, hoping to keep the f file controlled, but also freeing up the f4 rook to come over to h4, and we'll see why in a second. Opponent played e7, and here we get to see the idea. There's a mate in 3, pause your video if you would like to find it. The move was h6. My opponent played king h5. Now the rook can come over with check, protected by the bishop, and when the king comes up, rook f6 is checkmate. So, a nice round 1 game. It went pretty quickly. Neither of us used a whole lot of time. Really encouraging way to start, getting a mate on the board. According to the engine, no inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders, 98% accuracy. I like to see that, but of course I would have messed up after king e2. Still, as for the moves actually played, did alright. So that was round 1. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in round 2. Keep grinding those tactics. Thanks, bye.